Good morning, Anne.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Suzanne McAllister with the Post Animal Use World Project, PAW Project, with Anne Piotrowski, my co-founder and founder of Conversations with a Friendly Vegan. And today is the 21st of November, and we are doing our regular follow-up discussion after our meetup last night. So, Anne, why don't you start us off?
Okay, so the title of our discussion yesterday was integrating the spirit of the Liberation Pledge. The Liberation Pledge being something that some vegan people do. They make a commitment to live a vegan lifestyle, refrain from sitting where animals are being consumed, and then encouraging others to do the same. So we had talked about this before, but we wanted to talk about if you don't want to, if you're choosing not to go 100% with it, are there ways to integrate it into our lives? So the discussion really, because we're at this time right before Thanksgiving, it comes up more because we're attending more gatherings, we're around more people who are not vegan. And so the discussion really went to, I would say the theme was pain, sadness.
Yes.
And that around this time, the pain of losing community, that came up. At this time in 2023, in November of 2023, there's war going on in Gaza, and so there's a lot of fear and harsh and hateful actions that I think are coming from people's fears, and that's causing pain for our people who attended. And of course, the animals, sadness about seeing animals and the kind of thoughtless consumption of animals. That feels painful.
Yeah, that's a good summary, which was a little unexpected. But it for me was a very, very touching meeting. It was a small group of us. We know each other at this point because we've been doing these now for a couple of years. And one of the things that also was unexpected was one person was talking about some of the rituals or gatherings that she and her group had prior to the pandemic have kind of fallen by the wayside. And I think, like most of us, there's just been a readjustment post-pandemic. And some things have come back, but many things have not. And it's really requiring us to change and maybe put energy into something that we had established before, but is no longer happening. And so there's the transition and adjustment. We also talked about the silly pardoning of the turkeys in our country, the United States, by the president. And I had read something right before we went live about how it's actually promoted by the industries that want us to eat more turkeys.
Right.
And we had this conversation, which was illuminating. Somebody said, well, maybe it helps people to make the connection between these living, beautiful beings and what ends up roasted on their tables. And then we kind of polled each other, did it ever have that impact on you? And we all shook our heads, no.
Yeah.
We could watch it and it didn't wake me up. Until I woke up, it did not wake me up.
Yeah, and I do wonder sometimes if it is those little tiny nudges that do ultimately lead to us waking up. That's a possibility. I wouldn't, those I think largely are on a subconscious level, so I can't recollect specifically if I ever had kind of some inkling of like, well, that's weird, or that's there's a disconnect there. I'm looking at this pardoning thing, and then it's this
Yeah.
turkey in the middle of the table. So, yeah, I don't really know that, but I know that it's just we kind of grow weary, don't we? Sometimes, like, it's just we're talking about how just we can be patient and we can be there, and we love these people, right? We do love them, but always I I refer to it as like the kind of emotional gymnastics that have to happen to be present, have a good time, enjoy the people we love, but we have to kind of put these other things aside. That gets exhausting.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I kind of go back and forth, and my tendency is to be conflict avoidant, which I'm working on. If I think there's a good reason for me to be a bit more assertive, I'm really trying to do that. And yet, when I'm reminded that, yes, I could see the turkey pardoning and think, aren't they adorable? And I'm so glad they're going to live. And then not make the connection to, at the time, my then going to Thanksgiving dinner and consuming one of them, just not making that connection between what I was doing and my enjoyment of at least two turkeys being pardoned.
Yeah.
And it just goes to demonstrate again the incredible power of denial. That
Yes.
when our minds are closed, they're closed. But I love what you just said about how there may be little drops going into the bucket of bringing unconsciousness or subconsciousness up to consciousness level, and that maybe it's one thing after another that we're just not aware of until suddenly it's like, boom, okay, I finally see it.
Yes, it's like, and we've described it as waking up, or you become conscious. So what was unconscious and subconscious rises to the level, and then it comes into our consciousness as like, wow, and it seems like it happens all at once because it's such an impactful feeling. It feels like it's an overwhelming feeling. And then we're vegan, and then we become vegan. But it actually, I believe it is a result of years and years and years of being exposed to or exposing ourselves to some truth that doesn't jive with what we learned, or what we've been taught to do, by also very well-meaning people who were also just stuck in the same system that we were stuck in, so the same mindset.
That's why I kind of go back and forth, and I really challenge myself. Am I giving people a pass because I saw how, I'm going to use the word ignorant, I was? But is that just a way for me to stay away from what I call my conflict avoidance? And so I'm challenging myself all the time to really answer that question.
I see it as, I feel that understanding why that denial is there and how that mechanism works, understanding how it worked for us, and then being able to understand why so many people are kind of stuck in that. I don't see that as a pass. I see that as providing me with the empathy that I think I bring to activism. So it's like when I share like some truth, when I'm that priming experience, I'm that drop in the bucket, right? When it's just by something I say or just by being there, that if it's done with empathy, compassion, with love, with understanding, not acceptance, not agreement. I'm not agreeing with them. When it's done that way, I feel like it can be a really, really impactful tool in advocacy.
Well, you and I know each other pretty well, and I think you are better at making the truthful statement that might make people uncomfortable. That's why I'm saying because of my makeup, I worry about whether or not I am empathic, but do I also use it as a way to not do something that might make people squirm a little bit? And that's where, for me, that line, I'm always sort of looking at it and saying, are you hiding behind that, or
Yeah,
is this true empathy?
exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
just me personally.
I think it's also just like making people squirm is kind of like a loving thing to do sometimes,
And I
that's it.
love
I
that
think
you
that's the
say that.
reframe. That's the reframe, right? That's the reframe, that being quiet and people pleasing isn't really the loving thing to do because you're hiding yourself. But the loving thing to do is to be clear and honest and truthful and make people squirm a little bit, because you know what? When they return, they'll return the favor all the
Yeah.
time. So that's okay too.
I know that to be true. And it's sometimes, I have to say, all right, put on your big girl pants, Suzanne, and, go out there, and it's okay to make them squirm, because it probably means that you're mixing things up a little bit inside of them. But then I say, well, is that really my job? So we could spend a lot of time talking
we
about
could
that.
totally, we will. I think a loving disruption in their thought pattern is okay. If it's a loving disruption, I do think that's okay. And in fact, I think that's kind of what, a big part of what we do and what we teach people to do, this loving, empathic advocacy kind of work. So I don't want to forget to say this one thing that you brought up yesterday in the meeting, which was, because the meeting really largely was about the pain that people are going through and kind of being there for each other in that pain. But one thing that you talked about was the volunteer work you do with the rescued puppies. And then what that brought up is the importance of that. We can't sit in that pain. We don't want to avoid pain, but we can't sit in it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We need to purposely expose ourselves to activities that are incompatible with pain.
I love that.
Playing with puppies is one of those. So that you brought up, that I thought that was such a great one.
But I'm experiencing it often these days. I volunteer with an organization called luckypups.org, and they're on Instagram, and they primarily bring puppies up from Texas, where, let's just say that the human animal bond is a little different in Texas than it is in Pennsylvania. It's not great in many places, but and yes, having these little puppies, holding them and having them just cuddle with me is, it's like holding an infant.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
It's what, so just that, that it's okay to feel pain, or to go there and to allow yourself to feel that for a while, but that to really on purpose seek out activities where you can't hold a wriggling little puppy and be sad. It's just not possible.
You cannot. And I loved that you made that connection so clearly. I knew I purposely went to start this volunteer job because so much of what I do post-pandemic, or during and now post-pandemic, is online. And I like being with people. And so when I go there, I never know who else is going to be there. I know the puppies are going to be there, and that's why I'm there. But it's just fun, and we have fun. And I loved that you were making that suggestion. And one of the things that we focus on a lot as mental health professionals and animal advocates is self-care. And I think that's really what you were talking about, which is, if we're sad, and it can be a very sad time for many people, the holiday season, because of all the hype of the beautiful pictures of families gathering and everybody loves each other and there's no drama and there's no conflict.
Yes.
Very unreal. But we buy into that myth, that it can be a lonely time. It can be a scary time. It can be a sad time. So I'm glad you said that. And I just want to quote something you said, which I loved, which is something you came up with last year, but I hadn't heard it, which is something that you said, may all turkeys be free and all people are pardoned, which was your answer to those turkeys being pardoned, which I thought was wonderful. So anything else quickly before we sign off?
No, I think we covered big part of it.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. And
We
just, I
talked
think
to-
we put out there that we are part of a supportive community. We, to the participant who talked about losing their sense of community.
Yes.
We did kind of quickly address like the impact of the pandemic on people who have health issues, and maybe I take for granted the fact that I have the freedom now to go out and do things that I wasn't
Yes.
able to do at a certain time, but I don't have the health restrictions that may cause some
other
extra
people do.
isolation. So just even an online community, it's not a perfect substitute for in person, of course, but you know what, if that's what we've got, that's what we've got. If that's it,
Exactly.
then and that we can be part of that
Yeah.
for her and for other people. So
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Well, we're
Yeah.
wishing everybody who's watching this a happy Thanksgiving, or Thanksgiving is what we call our celebration, because I'm going to a vegan potluck, which I'm thrilled about. So there will not be one animal who has been hurt in the preparation of the food that we'll be serving. You'll hear from us again after our next meetup, or before, if we're doing a preview. So thank you, Anne.
Okay, thank you.
Good to
Bye,
see you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.